Sexual relations between a man and a woman in ancient Greece. Facts that can surprise you beyond belief. Greetings. Today we will talk about what intimacy was, its peculiarities and importance for the ancient Greeks. Is it true that the small size of the male genital organ was considered worthy and had a huge advantage? In honor of what holiday of ancient Greece orgies were arranged? And whether vegetable oil was really considered one of the methods of contraception? We have prepared for you really shocking facts of that historical period, representations of the ancient Greeks about sexual life and spouses. Let's first deal with the key question: how the inhabitants of ancient Greece imagined intimacy and what role assigned to man and woman in terms of continuation of the species. Sexual relations between a man and a woman, ancient Greeks regarded not just as a continuation of the human race, but as one of the ways of the highest pleasure. That is why such activities were welcomed in this country. After all, even the philosophers of that time repeatedly said that a man should not hide his intentions, which are directly related to pleasure. As for men and women, the Greeks believed that each of them carries its own value in society. They considered the man to be the basis of everything and therefore praised the male population in every possible way. Woman, according to the inhabitants of ancient Greece, performed two main functions. The first was reproductive, giving birth and raising children. The second, household chores. But there are still a few points worth talking about. First, the prohibition of kissing on the lips in public places and in full view of others. Such an action was regarded as a disgrace and indecency. Otherwise, a man who did not restrain the impulses of love affair was considered to be subservient. An exception to the rules was checking on a spouse who returned home after a walk or from a visit. This is how a man checked if his life partner was drunk on wine. That is why, in the case of public kisses, it was believed that a man accused his spouse of alcohol abuse. Secondly, in ancient Greece, the birth of girls was not welcomed. As a rule, if a woman left behind a girl, she was later given to a brothel, or she was given in marriage to a groom who was ready to offer the best price for the bride price. This dislike of the weaker sex was due to the fact that it was boys who represented the future generation, which embodied courage and embodied fertility. Male genitalia as an idol and an object of envy. Surely many of you have noticed one important and even strange detail. Ancient Greek sculptures in most cases are depicted in the form of naked people and even with a small size of the male genitalia. The ancient Greeks did not just create such masterpieces. This is due to the fact that the male penis was given the most attention. The Greeks believed that such an organ is not just a place of unconscious worship on the part of women, but also an object of envy. At that time, there was even a fashion for leather goods in the form of a penis. In this way, women demonstrated that they had not just some toy, but also a sign of fertility. Remember how we talked about the size of the penis in the beginning? Well, it turns out that in ancient Hellas, this parameter really mattered. The Greeks believed that a small penis was a sign of noble intentions and high status, whereas a large size indicated a solid shortcomings and testified to the lowered moral image. Due to their importance, male genitals were present not only in sculptures, but also on other objects of artificial human activity, up to the fact that they decorated the entrance over the door to a private house. Such an object replaced the familiar horseshoe for good luck. Female and male prostitution. If you stick to the stereotype that several millennia ago prostitution was practiced exclusively by women, it is time to get rid of this opinion once and for all. By the way, bodily service of clients in ancient Greece was welcomed, and this occupation was engaged in both female and male part of the population. What are the features of prostitution of the ancient Greeks? The first thing we draw your attention to is the legality of the phenomenon in question. True, there were age restrictions, but spread on men. Representatives of the male sex had the right to serve customers only from the onset of adulthood. But for the female part of the population, there were no restrictions. Anyone could become a prostitute regardless of her age. The next thing is the classification of night butterflies. Prostitutes of ancient Greece were divided into three main types. Pornai occupied the lowest level and became property and the main source of money for pimps. Wandering were of the middle level, which allowed them to roam freely in the city streets. Heteras were at the highest level of the hierarchy and were highly educated, unlike the other types of love priestesses. Even the ancient Greek politician Pericles could not resist one of the ladies and therefore abandoned his wife. So, male prostitution was widespread in ancient Hellas. As we said earlier, men were limited only by age. Especially valued were young men who had reached puberty, but did not yet have beards and mustaches on their faces. Along with night butterflies, young men and boys fulfilled the physiological needs of male customers, which was also welcomed by the ancient Greeks. Only rarely did bodily intercourse based on heterosexuality take place. Unusual traditions of ancient Greece. Do you think that the ancient Greeks at that time were strange? Now, we will tell you about several traditions, after which you will answer the question yourself. The ancient Spartans made a boy out of a bride. Yes, this is such a strange tradition in the times of ancient Hellas. Spartans did the following. Before handing over the bride to the cherished groom, she was shaved bald and then dressed in men's clothes. It was believed that this is how a woman became more attractive to the future spouse. It is also important that homosexual relations in ancient Sparta, before entering into an official marriage, was a common practice. Oral pleasures and orgies in ancient Greece were widespread, and the latter were organized in honor of Dionysus, the god of winemaking. Men often organized symposiums where they had fun with hetairæ and at the same time drank wine and discussed a number of vital and important issues. Also in ancient Greece, adultery was not considered something offensive and negative phenomenon. Greeks did not limit themselves in unity only with legitimate spouses. Moreover, adultery was encouraged to some extent. Methods of contraception. Finally, we will tell you what contraceptive methods were used by the inhabitants of ancient Hellas, especially since it was with the help of them that regulated the birth rate in this country. Ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle believed that one of the ways to prevent pregnancy is considered vegetable oil, and before sexual intercourse, pour it inside the corresponding organ. This is exactly what this great man recommended. Since we are talking about products, the ancient Greeks considered dates and pomegranate an ideal way of contraception, and they used them both before and after sexual intercourse. And now, let's listen to the advice of Dr. Serranus. The latter recommended that a woman should hold her breath and then lean her body back a little so that the seminal fluid does not enter the uterus. The woman should then stand up and squat sharply with her knees bent. This was followed by sneezing. Thus, to the issue of intimate character, the ancient Greeks approached with intelligence and did not limit their will. For them, such an activity was considered one of the highest pleasures. Although the traditions of a sexual nature are strange, they were universally practiced in those historical times.